So
that's not to say they won't dot my eye in just a minute now, because
oh, really?
It's cloudy and rainy, and they
Yeah,
can get a poor attitude. But hopefully they'll be nice.
Wow, and you still feed them, huh?
Well, that one's kind of weak, so I think he's just feeding it, trying to boost it up, because it's not very strong. I don't know about these two that went on yet. That one seems to be working a little better than these other two, but I want to be able to show you some brood damage and stuff. Hopefully there'll be some things I can show you in this one.
Yeah. Oh, good. So you don't do varroa testing, right?
Oh yeah, we're going to do the raw. Yeah, we're going to do the
alcohol.
wash.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is regular rubbing alcohol. Told them 70%, 9, whatever. Just regular rubbing alcohol. So this is real expensive kit. I've got a dollar store bowl on the tailgate, a manila folder, a mason jar, and some 1/8" hardware cloth that we clipped off. Yeah. And all you need is just a screen that'll keep the bees in when you wash the alcohol and let the mites through. Yeah. So any screen works fine. But that 1/8" hardware cloth, I got a whole roll of it. I normally will snip off squares and put it in the truck.
50 feet too.
Yeah, $20. You can get 50 feet of this.
Yeah, I do a lot of removals, a lot of trap outs.
Okay. Well, you know then the value of that stuff. You can use that and close off entrances, and they can still get air.
Yeah.
That stuff's invaluable if you're playing with bees. You're going to find uses. But we're just going to go in here. What we're going for is we're looking for the brood, because that's where your mites are going to be. Okay. And these guys have got some beetle stuff, so they've got a little attitude. So if they get a little bumpy, you might want to ease back. They're not real strong. These are mighty flighty. Hope they've got it clean. These sure are buzzed up. There's nothing happening here. Let me move some of this out of the way.
Got honey there.
Yep. Let's see if I can stand here. I'll stand right there. Here we go. Let's see if we got any brood.
Wow.
Pretty neat.
Maybe honey bomb?
Well, still haven't seen any brood. I think it's queenless. Yeah, it's queenless.
Yeah.
See all this extra pollen they've got stored in here? See, all that's pollen. That yellow and brown stuff, that's pollen there. There's no eggs and stuff in here. There's no brood of any kind. This thing's queenless. See this next frame, same way. If you guys want to take a look, I'll pull it up. And you saw how flighty they were when I opened the lid. They all just flew up like they were disoriented or lost or upset. And you hear that high-pitched hum? When you hear that high pitch like that, make sure you check for a queen, because a lot of times it's queenless. See, lots and lots of pollen. If they're raising brood, they'll be consuming that pollen. You'll see a little band of it, but you won't see whole frames like that. So this one is queenless. And on its way out. So we'll go in that other one over there next one. See if we can find something.
Should we put some eggs in there? Or there probably is not enough bees in there.
There's not enough bees left in this thing. They need to combine this one. If that was strong enough,
just put it on
top. But I'll leave it
top.
up to them because it's not my hive. But,
okay.
But I'll tell him it's queenless and he needs to
put it
do
on.
something with it.
Mix it. Yeah.
Like it is. It's not going to make it.
No.
Population will be gone in no time. A few bees is that it. But you hear that high pitch, that roar, you know, that's, if that queen scents there, they're relaxed and they'll hear a low buzz. If she's not there, they're upset. They want to know, where's mama? And they're fanning and looking, and you can tell by their attitude, like they were saying in there.
That one looks.
See, this one looks a little better. So we got a few more bees up here slipping on the syrup. You see these feeders, they got like 4 holes in them there. And see, the bees can get up in here and move around in here and suck from that. All you need is just a hole big enough for them to stick their tongue into. If it's too big, it can gurgle and drop too much nectar in there and pour out the front. Then they want to rob. Just want a few tiny holes. Oh my goodness, I believe this one can use that box.
Yeah.
Look at the honeycomb there.
That's what I would do.
I think they need a little space.
Yeah.
Now normally I'd pull frames from the outside so I wouldn't tear anything up, but this thing is so thick with bees, this one in the middle, it's like I got the best shot at pulling it out without doing any damage to any bees. Yeah. Normally you pull outside frame and work towards the middle. But they are so thick here.
Want me to smoke?
No, I'm good. If you don't mind, when I shake this frame, could I hand you the frame? Because I'm going to do a little wash here. Let's see if I can ease this thing out of here. puffier because these cloudy days,
Yeah.
I'm surprised they're being as good as they are. The most important thing, you want to frame a brood out of the middle of the cluster, and you want to look for the queen. And you can get more than one set of eyes, so if you guys want to look with me, we're looking for that elongated tail on that girl. Get them moving around because sometimes they'll cluster on her. She usually likes to go to the back side of the frame. They like to avoid the sunlight. So always check right around the bottom edge when you flip it over. If you see any clusters, get them moving so you can tell what's happening.
Now, would you call this body brood, or
Well,
is just
what's going on with her? Normally, you see if you look in these cells,
Yeah.
there's pollen and nectar in every cell except the one she's got laid.
Ah, so
They're
they
crowded. They need space. They're going to connect as much pollen as possible, and they're competing with that queen. She needs the cell space to lay eggs. They need it to store nectar. This really needs another box up here so they can store honey out of her way and she can raise her bees here. But they're starting to crowd her. See how that's all filled in around those edges? See how that glistening there? And look at that pollen. Beautiful. Excellent hive.
So where are you gonna?
And down in
put
these
them
cells, let's see. If you guys can get over here and get the sun behind you, look down in this area of the frame. You got to get the sun behind you. You can see a milky white substance down in there. Can you guys see that? Mm-hmm. That's that royal jelly she was showing us on there. That's young stuff. It's about 3 days old. It breaks down into a little sea worm, and then they start feeding that, pouring the royal jelly to it. And that's what's going on right in there. So she's doing great. And look at all this yellow pollen up here, orange and yellow. These guys are getting plenty of nutrition. And getting
So you
some good old
need,
food.
you need something out of your truck where you can
Yeah,
shake
no,
it
no,
in?
got it right here. I'm going to use this folder. Give it a little smoke.
Really? You shake it in the folder?
And the reason I do that folder, I used to have a little piece of metal that I put in here to do that.
Yeah.
This folder, when you shake these on here, you'll see. If the queen's there, you see her so easy against this. You shake it into a metal fold, you won't know if she's there or not. So I've looked at it, I'm going to give it a little shake, and I'm going to hand you the frame, okay?
Yeah.
Ready? There you go. Now you can see, is there on there? If she's there, the highlight behind that, you'll be able to see her tail real easy, okay? All right, and I don't see her. Don't see her anywhere there. I'm going to give it a little shake. And I don't need all these. I need about 200, about half of them. The rest of them, right back in your box. Okay, let's put
I
it
don't
back
know.
together.
I don't know which way she came from, but right here. Good in this side.
That is a good hive, but it really needs a
Yeah.
box on it.
I would
And
just
I'll
put
tell him.
this one on there.
Yeah, I'm going to let him. It's his bees. If it was mine, though, I'd be stacking it on there right now. Because they need some room and soon. Yeah. That thing's beautiful.
Okay, come on, ladies.
All right, now we'll go over to the tailgate and do our wash. And we'll talk a little bit about what we got. But that's how simple that wash, the mite roll is.
Yeah.
You just want to make sure you don't get the queen. You want to make sure you get bees off the brood. And then we're going to do the wash over here and see what we've got. But that's a rare treat. They only make that Tupelo for about 2 weeks, if they make it. This year they're actually making some, and you can taste that. That's some good stuff.
So you're the bee inspector here, or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
I cover everything from Monticello to Cottondale and Graceville.
But not Tallahassee, right?
Yeah, I cover Tallahassee.
Yeah?
Everything.
So that's where I just moved.
Well, I'm here.
What color? All right.
Yeah, I'll get you fixed up.
All right.
Okay. All right. But this thing,
That I can
you see, this
it.
white bowl, if you don't, you can use a lot of different things. They make a little thing, it's got a screen in it and all. This is very simple. If you don't have a white bowl, you can lay a piece of napkin in here, paper towel. The alcohol is going to kill the mites and the bees. You want about 2 ounces. I've got a little more than that here. There's probably 300 bees there easy. Okay. Swish them around, and you saw that wasn't even half those off that folder.
Yeah.
So I've seen people fill up a quart jar with bees. Please just kill half your hive. Don't do that. Oh my gosh. You guys are going to get to see some mites.
Really?
All right. Focus your camera in there, and we'll see what a varroa mite looks like.
Yeah. Well, it's not. It's acceptable now. It's 7, 8
One is acceptable.
on 300.
On 300 bees, yeah. Originally, they said 10 was acceptable about 20 years ago. Then they bumped that down to 5 about 10 years ago. 3 years ago, the honey beekeepers were like, if you've got a mite, you need to treat. Well, When you got that many mites and that much brood, here's the thing about a varroa mite, and I always do a second wash. These guys are heavier than the alcohol. See how they settle down? And you can pour the alcohol and leave your mites in the jar.
And do it again.
And then do another swish, because sometimes you don't get them all. And I always give them a second wash. If you find zeros, give them a second wash, because you may have missed one. But most of the time, you'll get the majority of them on that first wash. Okay, so what's our count there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 mites.
Yeah, we get more. There were 9
Yeah.
before.
So that hive is way beyond treatment time. If you've got 4 or 5 mites, you've got a problem. If you got 8 or 10, you got a major problem. If you got that many, now you saw how beautiful that hive was. A lot of bees in there, a lot of brood, a lot of honey. But the thing is, every time a bee hatches out of there, they're hatching 3 mites, already mated, ready to lay. They go crawl on a bee, they feed for 6 days, they crawl back in the cell with another brood, they lay it full. So every time you hatch 1 bee, you're hatching 3 mites.
Yeah.
They carry every kind of virus in the book. So when they attach on that bee's side, they're giving that virus to the bee. They're also creating a bacterial infection in that wound that's about equivalent to an alligator bite. It's that nasty as far as bacteria count. So the bee is going to die. There's a very good article, it's published in 2019. You can Google search varroa mites, fatty body, okay? That article was a collaborative event. All the researchers from Florida, Pennsylvania, Texas, all over the United States got together. Some of the people I've worked with and known a long time, very trustworthy people that have worked on these guys and tested for them for years, did that paper. In that paper, it tells you the life cycle of the mite. They actually fed dye to the bees, a certain color dye, so that they get in the hemolymph, a certain color to get in that, called that fatty body, which is like their liver. Okay, it's what gets rid of all the toxins and poisons out of their system. Then they let the mites feed on the bees. Then they took electron microscope views on stuff. They found out they're feeding on that fatty body. They've noticed where the bees are attaching. They did a study. About 70% of them are getting under the scale right on this side where that fatty body's at. And about 20% are getting over on this side trying to get to it. So most of the mite feeding is going on there. And the reason you don't see mites running around all over the bees, when they get up under that scale, there's just a little bit of their back end sticking out. So 80% of your mites are under cat brood laying eggs and creating more mites. The 20% that are out are hidden up under those bee scales, so you don't usually see a lot of mites in a hive. The signs you look for: sunken caps on the brood, larvae that are being pulled out the entrance that have died before they hatched. If you see a deformed wing, mites are notorious for carrying deformed wing virus. If a bee has deformed wing virus, it may not deform their wings. If it's a small case of it, it affects their neurological system. That bee will usually die after a couple of weeks. He won't ever live to forage. If he does go out and forage, he can't find his way home and he just disappears. That's part of the cowling collapse, part of it. But that bee is not going to be productive for the hive. If it's a real bad case, he'll hatch out with just a stub where his wing should be, or a partial wing. If you see that partial wing, always test for mites, because that's a real good indicator that you do have mites. Even if you don't see it, you still have to test, because I did not see any deformed wings in any of these bees. I didn't see any shortened abdomens. I looked for that. That brood does not look horrible, but look at the mites we have. You have to test to know. I tell everybody, treat in December regardless. You have very little brood here in December. There's not much blooming, a little bit of mistletoe, a little bit of loquat, very little cat brood. So you don't have many mites hidden under the brood. Most of them are on the adults and exposed. The treatments you use that time of year is going to be really effective. You get rid of the adults. Then as they build population in January and February, getting ready, as the forage gets better, they raise more bees. They're not raising mites. This guy right here, this hive, if you checked it in December, you'd had a high mite count. 4 or 5, 2 or 3, something. Now it's grown to this, and in another month that hive will be dead. Looking at it, you say, oh, look at this thing, it's killing, and it looks great. But with that many mites, you're going to see a turnaround real soon. It's fixing to really start getting, and I'm already finding viruses. I checked the guy the other day, had chronic bee paralysis virus in a lot of his bees. I've been seeing a little deformed wing here. The warmer it gets, the more viruses are in the environment. Those guys are fixing to go down.
So
if he treats them, he can save them. But they're at a point where he's really got to get busy.
So now we're on a honey flow. What
Right,
would
honey
you
flow.
treat?
With that hive, I would say whatever honey they make, I'd leave it on them, and I'd go ahead and treat with Apivar. Apivar is still going to be the most. You can fog them with oxalic, and you're going to kill the mites on most of the adult bees. You're not killing anything under that cap. And if you don't come back in 3 or 4 days and do it again, you're not getting a kill from it because it loses, it dissipates. If you put those strips in there, they stay in there for 6 weeks. They're killing all day, every day for those 6 weeks. You can get control. With this many mites, if you put 2 strips in that brood nest, let them stay for the 6 weeks that's on the label, and come back and check them. Do this same wash like we did. When you come back, pull your strips out, wait 2 weeks. Then do this wash. That gives any brood that's there a chance to hatch, so that if there are any more mites, they'll be coming out. Then do this wash. If you got them to 0, you're in good shape. If not, you may have to treat again. And this many, I bet they're going to have to treat a second time. Oxalic works great. There's a lot of things out on the market that we got that you can use as a stopgap, or if there's just a few mites. When you get this many mites, if you don't get serious about it, you knock down half those mites, you haven't done anything. A month from now, that population is going to be greater than it is. It's a game of numbers. You have to defeat all of them, get them to 0. And when you get this many, that's hard to do. So I would rather have the hive alive and maybe make a little fall honey or something. But if he doesn't treat them, he might make a box of honey on that, then it's dead this summer. You got nothing this fall. So it's more important to keep that hive alive, even if he doesn't get a drop of honey off of it. So, but that is horrible. If you shake that out, you've not done something right. You need to be checking them about every 2 months, 3 months at the most. Treat them in December, clean them up, okay? Then you go into January, you're starting to have a few more things bloom, they're starting to raise a little more brood. You get into about mid-February, your temperatures get better, okay? Your nighttime temperatures are starting to get in the mid-40s, your daytime temperatures in the mid-60s, they're foraging, there's a lot of stuff blooming. You need to go in and check the hive. When you check that hive in mid-February, last week of February, you're looking to see, how's my queen laying? Because the first thing you gotta make sure if you got a good hive is a good queen. Is she laying an egg in every cell? Is she filling up frames? She's doing fine. Then you're going to do a mite wash. See what your mite level is. Then you're going to see if you see any beetles. And I saw some beetles in the hive. He's going to have to treat for those too. Beetles are the cockroach of the hive. They carry Jamie Ellis, he did his doctoral thesis on small hive beetles in Africa. And I asked him one time, I took some beetles and ground them up, and I thought I found some Nosema serrana spores in what I was grinding up there. And we were checking bees, and I found a bunch of beetles. I said, I wonder what's in here. And I asked him, I said, Jamie, I think I'm seeing Nosema serrana spores in beetles. Do they carry that? He said, Jeff, everything that a bee can have, beetles either carry in them or on them. He said they are the cockroach of the hive. They move all kind of pathogens around the hive. So you have to keep the beetles out, you have to keep the mites out. That's going to help your disease by a great deal, because most of the viruses are vectored through the mites. The beetles, they bring in all kinds of infection. Get those out of your hive, okay? So you got a good queen, you get rid of your pest. The other things, they got to have resources. They've got to have something coming in for nectar, they've got to have pollen. The pollen is their protein, the nectar is their carbohydrates. That's their bread, and that's their steak, okay? They have to have that to feed their young with, they got to have it to eat themselves. So if you don't have a honey flow and a nectar flow, you're going to have to do some feeding stuff. So 1st of March, you're checking, are they getting resources? Is the queen laying right? And what pests do I have here? Deal with those pests, make sure the resources are there, and make sure your queen's in good shape. If she's not doing well, you need to kill her and have them hatch a new one, or buy one from someone. Another thing in 1st of March, when you look at that hive, the last week of February, 1st of March, if that hive is as packed as this hive is right here, and it's the first day of March, you need to make a split. If you do not split that hive, and they're that crowded during that time of year, they're going to start pulling queen cells everywhere. And they're going to cast off several swarms. You're going to end up with a ball of bees about this big, a virgin queen, and she won't even be laying good eggs and making bees until half the honey flow is gone. You're not going to make a drop of honey all year. If you want to manage the hive, you split that hive in. The reason they swarm, that queen gives off an aroma. When a hive gets that crowded, these bees over here don't smell her. They don't smell her aroma. They'll start pulling eggs and drawing cells, adding that royal jelly that she was explaining about in there, and making queen cells over here. All right, well now the queen's over here laying in the middle. Well now these guys don't smell her over here. It's 3 days later. They start drawing cells. Then she moves over here. Well, the middle, they haven't smelled her. They start. You'll end up with a hive full of queen cells. I have pulled frames up with 18 queen cells on one frame, okay? Now usually a queen's going bad when you see that much, but this hive was 3 deep, packed with bees. We made 7 splits out of that hive.